Hello everyone, we'll start. Please turn on your video on so that way I can see you. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. So today we're going to explore essay number 6, A Prescription for Peace. And this is really about finding our own faults. So this essay is about finding our own faults. In this essay, it's by Pravrajika Viraja Prana, who is a member of Ramakrishna, the Ramakrishna order, and she writes about the writings or the experiences of the Holy Mother, Sharada Devi. And the Holy Mother gives this quotation, I tell you one thing, if you want peace, do not find fault with others. Rather, learn to see your own faults. Learn to make the world your own. No one is a stranger, my child. The whole world is our own. What happens when we are trying to build a culture of peace? Pujya Gurudev has this very beautiful quote, love becomes thin when faults become thick. Love becomes thin when faults become thick. In our day-to-day experience, it's very easy to point fingers and to blame and to find fault. And especially now, it's so easy to say it's this one's fault or that's one's fault or this one has to do it and that person has to do it. And there's so many fingers pointing everywhere. But realistically, a spiritual seeker, how they would approach this is to stop and think about, wait, let me first point the finger at myself. Instead of saying you should do this or your government should have done this or you should have done that or this country should have done that, as a spiritual seeker, first point the finger at ourselves. You see, it's very easy to find fault and people do it all the time. You can work and build or prepare a really, really grand wedding and everything is going so amazing at that wedding. And maybe one little mistake is there and people tend to focus on that mistake. You can work for a superb event, have a wonderful online gathering with so many people and so many positive things happen, but you make one mistake and people focus on that mistake. So it's very easy to point our finger outside. It's very easy to find blind spots. It's very easy to find all these faults, but a spiritual seeker always finds fault in ourselves first. So how do we approach it? One way is to ask for feedback. If we find that something's not going right, instead of thinking about how the other person can improve, what can I do better? Is there something in me that I can do better? Is there something that I can change in the way I do things that will help accommodate everyone better? Because that can be very inspiring. When a spiritual seeker, they themselves say, can I do better? Then other people will say, maybe I should ask the same question. Maybe I should put forth that same idea. And when we get feedback, it's also important to find out who we're getting feedback from. feedback. And nowadays it's very general, right? Like an Uber driver will say, please rate this ride, or a Lyft driver will say it, or even a toilet at the airport will say, rate this toilet. But we're not asking for a general feedback. What we're asking is really feedback from the people that we serve with, and more so feedback from the wise. Somebody who's wise, someone who's qualified in that field, and someone who has pure intentions, that person can give us really good feedback. And sometimes that feedback isn't really what we want to hear, but a person who's wise and who's coming from sattva, when they come out of love, you know that they're not giving you feedback because they have ulterior motives. And you know it's not that they're trying to put you down so they can put themselves up. You know they're coming from a place of love. I share this story with the youngsters all the time, is that when I was serving in Chennai and we were working on Puja Gurudev's movie, On a Quest, I was helping in some ways write the script for the movie. And at one point in time, I had written a certain section, and Swamiji just looks at me and he says, "You call this writing? What is this?" And he just tosses it aside. And I felt at that moment so thankful that here in me, I have someone who loves, cares for me, that's so deeply honest, so risking everything and telling me this is, what is this? Because that just made me rewrite everything and write even better. And just that comment, and I mean, it's the relationship I have with him. I know that he's coming out of love. I know that that's the way he is. That's the way I am with him, And what a beautiful thing it was when you have someone in your life that can give you constructive feedback out of love. I remember in one of my talks, my dad said, today, I don't know, you went too fast. It just wasn't working. And I was like, wow, I really took that to heart. And I said, you know what? My dad was right. Today, my mood just wasn't in the right way. And perhaps I did go too fast. And that in itself is a blessing. So when we have constructive feedback from the people we love, from the people who love us, who are coming from a period of sattva, that helps us actually improve. It's actually a blessing to be exposed of what our faults are. Another way of looking within is the art of reflection. You see, actually, we don't always need feedback if we ourselves can give ourselves constructive and honest feedback. The problem is sometimes our minds try to justify and they try to dress up our misgivings or not so good qualities, and our mind tries to say, oh, it's okay for you to take a break. Oh, it's okay for you to be like this. But if we had this trained spiritual mind that would be very raw and say, you know what, this is wrong. You have to improve on this. This is not correct. And if we had that mind, and if we just took time out to really reflect on what's going on, this is a great sense of improvement. You see, in spirituality, one thing is to learn by study. And we should study seriously because it gives us a path. It gives us a guidance of how to go in the path. Where are we going? It gives us a sense of direction. In terms of living our lives, there are people who live their lives based on imitation. They find a role model. They find someone they want to be like. And they start to be like that. But a better way to live is through reflection. Because you know what? We're not exactly like anyone else. And we cannot be exactly like anyone else. But when you and I take that time to just reflect and say, you know what? This is the value that I really want to live. Where am I failing? What is just bogging me down? And if we narrow it down to if we narrow down everything, it boils down to really two, three things we will see in our lives that we need to work on. And when we sincerely put forth effort towards things, then we really change and we do improve. So it's about instead of doing this, turn it first and look here and see what's happening in here. And when we start to change, other people automatically change. Other people automatically, they say, oh, well, there's so many things are happening in this person. I should also do the same. There's a sense of want then, a sense of inspiration. During this shelter in place, sometimes once in a while I go for walks, and I was walking the other day and it was maybe 8:30 in the morning or something. And I said, wow, gosh, there's so many people. You have to be careful, keep the social distance and everything. And I said, there's so many people. It's just so hard to walk. Maybe I shouldn't walk. And I was thinking, why would there be so many people outside at this time? Then I looked back at myself and I said, there should be so many people at this time. It's 8:30 in the morning. If you want to take a peaceful walk with barely any people there, wake up earlier and go for your walk earlier. So today I tried to make that effort, and sure enough, I went for my walk at about 6:30, and it was much more peaceful. And I said, that's all you really need to do. You need to stop thinking about what other people are doing and start thinking about what you can do to make things work. And so the first part really is, what can we do? Stop looking at everybody else. Stop looking at what everybody else is doing. What can we do? It starts there. And slowly we will find as we improve, then things outside also start to improve. Now, there are some things that other people also have. So as we find our own faults, it's not that we blindly accept other people, and say, oh, they have no faults. It's not that we go about it that way. We understand that just as though we have limitations and we've looked and reflected at them, and only after you look into yourself, then you can look into others, we understand that other people have limitations too. But the difference is we don't focus on them. That's how we deal with other people. So how do we deal with the limitations or faults of other people? The first step is really don't take the part of the person to be the whole entire person. So, sometimes you and I have this habit of, let's say we get into a fight with somebody, you're in an argument with somebody. What will happen is we forget every single thing about that person. And that 2 minutes that they said something wrong, they said something not nice, they said something that hurt us, we just remember that part. We just remember what they said during that time. And we take that whole part to be that entire person. I mean, it could be that they're just having a bad day. It could be that they just saw something disturbing or disruptive. It could be that, something just happened in their family. We don't know what happened. We don't know the backstory. But maybe for 2 minutes, yes, that person lost it. Yes, they said something that they shouldn't have said. But why should we take that 2 minutes to be the whole entire person? We've shared years together with that person. We've had so many wonderful experiences, so many laughs, so many jokes together. How can you and I forget that whole entire person and take that person to be that 2 minutes when they fell? How do we do that? Bhagavan, Lord Krishna in chapter 9 says, Apisu durachara. Even if there's somebody who's really good at being bad, even if there's someone who's really good at being bad, I take him to be sadhu. Sadhu mantavyaha. I take him to be a sadhu or her to be a sadhu when samyak vyavasito hisaha, when they take a firm resolve to change. When they take a firm resolve to change, even if somebody did something really terrible, I take them to be a sadhu. Now just think, is there anyone in this world who has lived life without making a mistake? Without sinking low, doing something wrong? Is there someone who's lived life without committing an error? There's no one. Even the most perfect saint has some kind of history. Even they have some kinds of mistakes. So even if that person slipped for some time, it's okay. How can we take that whole person to be those 2-3 minutes of slipping? And would we want someone else to look at us in that way? Probably not. Another way to deal with a person who has certain limitations or shortcomings is understand them a little bit more. It's not that you're making an excuse for their action. It's not that you're trying to justify them, but at least know their backstory. There's this monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Vietnamese monk, and he writes really nice books. And in one of his books, he writes about young girls who are subject to trafficking. They're subject to human trafficking. And he says, I understand the pain of these young girls who are subject to this, because how can they be witness to this? But he says, I also understand the pain of those who are taking advantage of these young girls. Because you know what? They must have been in pain too. They must have been in pain too. I also see that they have pain. You understand? He's not justifying it. He's not making an excuse. It is absolutely wrong. But what he's trying to do is trying to see the depth of the pain in others also. You see, people who abuse, people who cheat, people who lie, people who do all of these things, they don't do all of those things if they're happy. If you and I are happy, we're not going to go yell at someone. We're not going to lie. We're not going to cheat. We're not going to hurt someone because we're happy. We're pure. We're peaceful. The ones who are getting angry, who are abusive, who are lying, who are cheating, they're doing it because there's pain inside. They're doing it because there's a lot of pain. But the thing is, we don't know where that pain came from. We don't know. But there was pain there. That's the expression of pain. You just go and see in your own life when you have joy deep inside you. Oh, will you go and hurt somebody else in the street? No. When you have joy inside you, you can't help but smile. You can't help but laugh. You can't help but be so calm and serene. But when you and I have pain inside, we can't help but shout, but get disturbed, but harm. So if you and I see that there is a backstory, then it can help us understand that person also. Very beautifully in this book, it says, the Holy Mother, this is Ravrajika, she's describing the Holy Mother. She says, when she says that fault finding is the obstruction to peace, she strikes at the root of peacelessness. Not seeing the faults of others doesn't mean not recognizing the limitations of others. We all have shortcomings. What Mother meant was not evaluating the person on that basis. Instead, we should try to see the divine within the person. So nobody is doubting that yes, everyone has shortcomings, but it's about being able to look through that. Another way is, yes, if somebody has shortcomings, what can we do? Another way is to bring out the potential in them, bring out the best in them. And this can be seen in a great parent and a great teacher. Once, Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda, he went to a school to give a talk. And he went to this school that was really old and dilapidated. And he saw that in this school, the windows were broken. The windows in the school were broken, meaning people were, and you could see it's like students punching through the windows. And these were, like young, high school type students, high school students or college, but young students. So he went on stage. And Gurudev always knows the right thing to say. Goes on stage and he says, I'm very glad to see that the windows are broken in your school. And everyone was like, why is he saying this? He said, I'm very glad to see the windows are broken. He says, because that shows me you have energy. And all I have to do is direct it. What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. Gurudev is also the one that says, youth are not useless. They are used less. So it's not that, maybe they have something. Yeah, they have some shortcoming. But if you can channel that and make it amazing, what a beautiful thing. For us, youth, Swamiji was really a pillar for us, and we all had all kinds of things going on in our life. And there was one, and all of us youth were always around him and serving in one way or the other. And so some of us were involved in writing and organizing camps, and some of us would go teach in schools, and some of us would just, do a lot of administrative work. There was one youth there, and, he was very savvy, he just liked to chill, liked to hang out. He wasn't really into writing, into doing any of this. But he was a good person, but he just wasn't into any of this. And so Swamiji looked at him and he said, from here on, you're going to be my driver. You're just going to drive me wherever I need to go. You're just going to drive me wherever I need to go. And I tell you, he drove Swamiji everywhere Swamiji needed to go. And in that drive, what happened was satsang. What happened was he would ask Swamiji questions and Swamiji would answer. And this young boy had one of the greatest experiences in satsang. So you see, it's not that we can't do anything or we can't help them. It says even in this book that there was a thief who was going to Holy Mother and how she is able to transform them. The beauty of a parent, of a teacher, of a guide is that when somebody comes to you and they have a shortcoming, how to transform that into potential. How to transform that into something solid. We also see this story of Valmiki Maharishi, right? He goes to see Ratnakar. He goes to the forest and there's this dacoit thief, Ratnakar, who loots people's homes, who steals and everything. gives people a hard time. And he wants to loot from this Narada Rishi. He wants to loot from Narada Rishi. And Narada Rishi says, what are you going to loot from me? I'm a sage. What are you going to loot from me? And this Ratnakar says, aren't you afraid of me? And Narada Rishi says, I'm not afraid of you. And so this Ratnakar is so, he's just so taken aback that how come this Rishi is not afraid of me? Everybody else is afraid of me. This Narada Rishi tells him, tell me, Ratnakar, you're stealing, harming, looting everybody day in and day out. Who's going to share in all of your sins? Can you tell me, is anyone going to share in all of your sins? Are your family members going to share in it? And that night, Ratnakar goes to his family members and he says, are you going to share in my sins? I'm stealing for you. I'm stealing for you. He goes to his wife. He goes to his father. He goes to his children. I'm stealing all this for you. Are you going to share in my sins? And they said to him, no, we're not stealing. You're stealing. So you have to go through those sins. And Ratnakar just breaks down. And the next day he goes to see Narad Rishi and says, what do I do? And Narad Rishi says, from here on, you take the name of God. And you take the name of Rama. And this Ratnakar can't even say Rama. He says Mara, Mara, Mara. But it translates to Rama, Rama, Rama. And this Ratnakar becomes none other than Valmiki Maharishi, who writes our Ramayana. Hundreds and thousands of verses of Ramayana. You see, that one saint, one sage just probes, just asks a question. And that's enough to transform someone's life. So yes, when someone has such a shortcoming, we can also do something to bring out their potential. Now a question also comes. What if the person takes advantage of us? Yes, we become accepting of a person. Yes, we become compassionate, but we don't want them to take advantage of us. So I'm sure I've shared with you the story about that snake, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's very beautiful story. So I'll just tell you in brief because I know most of you know it. But there was this snake that was going on the path, and these young boys were always afraid of that snake because, they were afraid it would bite. And so one day a brahmachari was going by and the boys told the brahmachari, don't go there, the snake will bite. So the brahmachari went anyway. And the snake was there and he said, why are you biting, harming other people? From here on, just take this mantra and take the name of Bhagavan. And so the snake did that. And then the next day, the boys were wondering. They said, nothing happened to the brahmachari. Let's go visit the snake. And they went to visit the snake and they saw that the snake wasn't biting, wasn't harming them. They started taking advantage of the snake. They started throwing the snake, beating up the snake, putting the snake here, putting up the snake there. And the snake was harmed by them. And so the brahmachari, on his way back, came back to visit the snake, and he saw the snake was so thin, so thin, so afraid to come out, moving so slowly, so tenderly. And the brahmachari said, what happened to you? And the snake said, you told me not to harm anybody, not to bite anybody. The brahmachari said, I said, don't bite. But I never said don't hiss. I said don't bite, but I never said don't hiss. So when we do see a person who tries to take advantage of what we can give and are able to give. But stay alert. Stay alert. We're not there to harm anybody. We're not there to hurt anybody. but we stay alert because we have every single thing to give to those who need it, to those who can benefit from it, and not to those who will just take it for granted and waste it. So stand guard and stay alert. So today's topic, just to summarize, was really first how to find our own faults. And the first part of it was how to get constructive feedback from someone that we love and revere and who looks out for us, and also to reflect deep on what we can do, how we can change, how we can make things better. The first finger of anything should always be pointed to us. That doesn't mean we don't recognize that other people don't have shortcomings. Very realistically, yes, they do, but we don't focus on them. We don't focus on them because we never take the part of the person to be the whole person. We always see the person as a whole. And not only that, we always see what the backstory could be. What could that person be going through? And not only that, but we see if there's some way we can spark up the potential in that person, unleash something that's greater in them, because surely there is something untapped. And all they need is just that little tap to bring it out. And lastly, we saw that yes, maybe we find that in some ways there is this thing of taking advantage, but what can we do? What we can do is stand guard. Stand guard. Be very alert as seekers. So this is today's topic.